100% this is a junk. 100%.
So this supple material just makes a difference.
It's like a linear.
It's a decent fish.
Switch to the camouflage stiff in light. Glorious common carp out of 37 feet of water.
Thread the foam into the loading tool.
Bad boy fish.
Welcome to Carp Fishing Edges. I'm here on the banks of a stunning Essex syndicate. It's early April, and after the most horrible winter, the coldest winter I can ever remember, I've caught myself a carp. I'm joined here today by one of the sharpest and greatest minds in carp fishing today. A man who's been responsible for many of the fantastic products that Fox have produced over the last few years, Scott Day. Winter, the most challenging time for the carp angler, and just as importantly, challenging for the tackle he's going to use. It's miserable and it's cold, so cold in fact the water temperatures are going to start to plummet, and whilst they're doing so, the carp will slow down, and while they slow down, they'll feed with a level of caution that makes them infinitely more aware of the tackle that you're using laying on the lake bed. During this winter, the Fox lads have travelled around the UK and further on into Europe to test the new Edges range. And whilst we're on that journey, just like the carp, maybe you'll pick up a few edges too. And so the journey began. We're taking you back to last November now, to a very famous day ticket complex, Linear Fisheries in Oxford, and in particular Manor Farm Lake, where I'd set my store out to catch a very special day ticket carp last winter. I was joined on the second morning by Scott, Harry Charrington and Rob Hughes, who were once again doing the underwater filming of the Edges range. And that particular campaign, let me tell you, couldn't have got off to a better start. Oh, bloody hell. Oh, I'm here at Manor Farm on the Linear Fisheries ticket. One of the best day ticket waters in the country. This is right at the start of my winter campaign, and true to form, I put a load of boilies out, about 1.5 kilos, and I've caught the biggest fish in the lake. This is Spike at 44.5 pounds, and when I return him, I'm going to tell you how I caught it. And this is the very rig that I used to catch Spike. Let me tell you why. Manor Farm in Oxford on the Linear ticket is dominated by maggots at this time of year, and I came up here wanting to use boilies. And when I'm using boilies only, I'm going to use a stiff link pop-up. Now, it's a pressured day ticket water, and every little percentage that you can work in your favour is going to count. I didn't want to thrash the water to a foam, but I needed to get a rig in position that would fish as naturally as possible. Not wanting to disturb the water, I didn't want to be casting the lead around everywhere, so I had to use a stiff link pop-up setup that would sit quite naturally on the bottom. Very kindly, Fox have let me loose for the first time with the new Cortex mat. I've been using Cortex in my fishing for an awful long time now. In fact, in my bottom bait rig, it's 95% of the time Cortex will be involved. This is my stiff link pop-up go anywhere rig. I have changed the £30 Illusion boom section for £15 Cortex mat. It's supple enough to sit on the bottom over any small little obstacles, bits of weed, maybe little bits of gravel, not to make the pop-up sit up at an unusual angle. And much as they say, it was good enough to catch a 44 6 ounce day ticket carp. It's the kind of thing, it's one of those little percentages that makes such a massive difference to your fishing. A single hook bait, which the first fish was caught on, a 24 mirror, could sit there all day and the fish can look at it from every angle if they are looking for anything, and that matte finish makes it look a lot less obtrusive on the bottom. Over bait, however, it can be a slightly different matter. You still want your bait presented as best you can, and once I put that 1.5 kilo of boilies out, I only had to wait a few hours and I had a 44 mirror in the bottom of my landing net, and let me tell you, it don't get any better than that.
Well, here's my contribution. 24 pound 2 ounce, caught over a bed of maggots on a rapid bag full of maggots. And the hook link was the new Reflex dark camo. Lovely looking fish in his winter colours. We'll get this one back, try and catch another.
Well, first morning, not really seen anything this morning, but Harry's had one in the night, early hours this morning. I'm fishing next door to him and just managed to get this take. Unfortunately, he's picked up one of Harry's lines as it's counted right, but he's done the honourable thing and slackened him off and let me ruin his swim for a couple of minutes while I try and land this one. Just interrupted me brew as well. Let's just hope we haven't nipped one pearl on with all his rods. It's not as warm as it looks in my t-shirt. It's like a linear.
And what new bits have you had this on?
Oh. Little chod buffer sleeves. Oh, gutted. Was a linear. Hard to tell. Wasn't a bad fish, but it wasn't a beast. Oh well. Have to have another go.
Now at Fox, we take our product development very, very seriously. We want to make sure that you have got the right tools for the job in the right situation that we're fishing. So part of the reason we're down at Manor today is to get in the water and have a look what our rigs and end bits and bobs look like. We've got a whole host of different rigs, different types of materials and different colours, and we're going to be putting those through the paces down there and of course looking at them out of the water. It's a little bit parky, I'm sure it's going to be a bit chillier in there, but Scott has found himself what he thinks is a decent spot. So I've got all the kit here. I'm going to be popping it on, getting in the water, and then you can see exactly what we see when we're going through the development process.
Ooh. Okay, right, we found a nice little spot. It's only 50 yards out. It's a spot that pretty much anybody could find. It's a lovely bar just behind it. It's about 12 foot, and it's a bit dirty. There's a little bit of weed, a little bit choddy, a bit soft. It comes up on the bar, and then along the top of the bar, it's nice and smooth. Feels like real small gravel, but it's really nice and clean. And then it drops down on the front of it again, drops down to around about 10, 11 foot off the front of it, dropping down into 12, and then it's a little bit weedier again. But that's the spot that we've chosen for Rob to dive on. Like I say, it's a spot that anybody can find, and probably hundreds of carp have already been caught off it. So what we're going to do is we're going to get Rob in the water, have a little look at all our new rigs and components, all the new colours in light and dark camo, and see what they look like on the bottom.
So it's November as we enter the depths of Manor, and the water's chilling down and clearing nicely. For those of you that don't know Manor, this is the bar in front of the road bank, and as you can see, it's a gin clear area of gravel with weed on the backside and silt on the front. It's the ideal time to be testing products as the water is as clear as it gets, and in this particular area there are so many different colours that the new gear will really be put through its paces. Now, colour is one of the big misconceptions of many anglers. The bottom of lakes are rarely one colour, and here is a prime example. It's clear gravel of a Cotswold stone colour, with some small areas of weed in dark green, some silty coverings of a darker brown, and the whole area has a slightly greeny yellowy tint, which is caused by the light passing through the water. Well, it's time to get the rigs in. What we've done is attach leaders to the rigs for speed and ease of use. And for this test, I'm looking specifically at the hook links rather than the leaders themselves. Scott's first cast unfortunately has landed on the side of the bar, but you'll see it's still presented well. We've got a pink pop-up on to help me find it and you see it, and this is the prototype of the gravel brown matte Cortex hook link material. Just look at that. Whilst it's lying in a straight line, it's still fairly undetectable even in this clarity of water. The gravel colour is a great match for this bottom, and the matte coating makes it extra unobtrusive even when it lies over the green weed. This is the material Chili used for that amazing capture of spike, and you can see here exactly why the fish was tripped up. For me, I'd certainly be happy with this as a camouflage. Second up was the Cortex Matte in weedy green, which probably wouldn't be everyone's first choice when fishing over gravel, but you can see here how well it lies, and it would be the perfect choice when fishing over weed. Even out of its comfort zone on gravel, it's pretty unobtrusive. Now comes another prototype, and this one's called Camouflage Soft. This is the dark camo version, and the big question is, where is it? Look closely to the right of the lead and you'll just be able to make it out as we get a little bit closer. There's 3 colours in this material, making it one of the hardest hook links to spot. If you prefer a stiff hook link, then check out this little beauty. This is the lighter camo version of Camotex Stiff, and it gives a perfect presentation that is all but invisible. They say a picture never lies, well this one certainly doesn't, and only when we get to within centimetres of the rig are we aware that there's a hook link there at all. The secret is in the design, a disrupted translucent coating that quite simply disappears underwater. Just so you can see that again, let's take another look. As we approach the rig, you can clearly see the hook bait just about make out the lead, but there's no way on this planet that a fish can make out that hook link. On this cast, we're going to look at a completely new concept of colour for beads and clips. Follow the gravel brown submerged leader, which is the soft unleaded leader material, and just look at that lead clip. We've studied loads of my photographs and videos of different lake beds and come up with the ultimate in colours for disguise. It quite simply disappears, and compared with any of the other lead clips on the market, this one is in a different league. The colour and the rest of the products in this tone has a new name. It's called Trans Khaki.
Well, there we go folks, second morning on Manor. This one makes up for yesterday's loss. I was a bit gutted about that, but managed to get the rods back out again. Just on dark, after we did some of the filming with the rig components. And yeah, had this one just before light this morning, 28.2. As you can see, stunning fish. Had him on the new Camotex Stiff in the light colour, with the submerged leadless leader. Right, this morning you see me with that lovely 28 pounder, real beautiful fish, but I want to talk you through the rig and how I caught that particular fish. Yesterday after Rob's diving, we could clearly see that the lighter components that we produced were going to be the best ones to cast out there. So after that little bit of diving that we did, I decided to move on to these components. Now I'm using here the new light submerged. This is 45 pound, it's a leadless leader. Without the lead, it's very, very supple. So if there's any debris on the bottom, the leader will just droop over any objects on the bottom, just to keep it nice and inconspicuous. So we've got a good length of 45 pound green, light coloured, submerged leadless leader. And we go down to one of the new coloured lead clips. Now yesterday it was obvious when Rob was diving on the cleaner areas out there, that this new lighter coloured, slightly translucent lead clip was the one that was definitely not very visible out there. So we go down to that lead clip with a 4 1/4 ounce lead. Now I've only just nicked the lead clip on because I don't want the fish to use the weight of the lead to eject the bait. So I want the fish to pick the bait up and then just bang the lead off, and now it can't use the weight of the lead to try and rid my hook. Down into the hook length itself, I've got a length of stiff Camotex light. Now this is a new hook length we've been working on for a while, and with Rob's expertise diving and some underwater camera work we've been doing, we've discovered that this light camo hook length is perfect for the bottom that I'm fishing out there. There's a couple of blobs of putty just to weigh it down, and then I've got down to a size 7 SSSP hook and a little pink pop-up. Now I'm fishing over maggots out there, so I just wanted a nice pink hook bait similar to the red coloured maggots that I'm using out there. The spot that I'm fishing out there, it's an area of very fine gravel with a little bit of silt over the top of it. It's light coloured silt, and these components really do blend well on the bottom there. You can never guarantee that you're going to be fishing on perfectly sandy or silty or gravelly bottoms. There's always, as you can see from some of the footage that Rob's done, there's little bits of dark areas and lighter areas, and this is where the Camotex really does come into its own. The whole idea of camouflage is to use breaks in things so that there's no definitive lines on the bottom, and the Camotex really does do that. So just a simple rig, but we say it's really stiff, so it falls away from the lead and lies perfectly flat on the bottom. Because I know that area is really nice and clean and relatively smooth, the stiff hook length just creates a perfect presentation on there, separates away from the lead. So there you go. If you're fishing a lake that's got relatively smooth, clean areas, then the stiff Camotex really is a great hook length to use. Combine that with the submerged leadless leader as well, and you've got the perfect setup to try and catch some of these weary carp.
There we go. Number 2 for me of the trip to Manor. Bit of a dumpy one, this one, 25 pounds. Caught over maggots again on the Rapid bag, and once again on the new Reflex dark camo hook link. Right, so you've seen a couple of the fish that I've had, and they have been on these babies. Maggots. As a winter bait, they've got to be the ultimate. Now you can see some of them are wriggling and some of them aren't. Now the reason I do that is because out on the spot that I'm fishing at the moment, there's a little bit of silkweed, and I don't want everything burying itself in the silkweed. So what I do, I take my maggots, and some of them I put into a bag, and I take all of the air out the bag. Now this suffocates them, and it means that when you put them in your mix, they're not gonna wriggle. And as long as you put them out within half an hour of taking them out of the bag, when they get in the water, they're not gonna wriggle at all. So that's a really, really good tip. Now, I fished them on this rig. It goes in a solid bag, and it's a really, really basic rig. It just consists of probably a foot length of submerged leader down to a 4 ounce inline lead. I really, really rate big, heavy leads for solid bag fishing. I just think the fish can't deal with them when they're 4 ounces and above. They just stand no chance. Then I've got a hook link, which is Reflex Dark. Now this is the new Reflex. I've used the old Reflex for years and years in my solid bags. It's really, really supple. It just curls up nicely and fits inside them. And I think now that we've improved the colours, they're going to work even better. Now I've got a little size 6 SSBP hook and a small 10mm homemade pop-up. It's pink, kind of matches all of the red maggots that I'm putting in there, and having a pop-up rather than a maggot hook bait just means that if there are any nuisance fish, you're not gonna have them picking them up off the hook. So that's the rig. It goes into a Rapid tied solid PVA bag, tied just the normal way how you tie a pellet bag with the Rapid, with one slight difference. The bottom, I've poked the hook through the PVA. Now I do this because if the hook was inside the PVA, it could well impale itself on a maggot and your rig would be useless. So that's what I do, that's how I fish my maggots, and that's how I've caught my 2 fish.
After seeing Harry's rig, it was time for me to get back in the water as our man was starring in my Below the Surface feature in Carpology magazine. On the way out, a fish crashed in front of me smack over Harry's spot, so I was really eager to get down and check out what was happening. As I dipped my head below the surface, I was lucky enough to see a couple of carp on his spot, clearly feeding, as the silt in the area had been kicked up and had formed a cloud over where he'd been baiting with his maggots. As I dropped to the bottom in 12 foot of water, the silty lake bed became more visible, and you can see the clouds of silt disturbance where the fish have been, a marked difference from the earlier dive on the gravel bar. I was looking for the maggots he'd baited up with, and on first inspection they were quite hard to find. The feeding fish had disturbed the silt, which had dropped back down and settled on top of them. Eventually I found a clump of red maggots and also one of Harry's rigs, and you can see here what a great presentation it is. Almost everything is hidden in the silt, and the only thing visible is his pink pop-up. Looking around the spot, there's more maggots, which incidentally don't burrow into the silt. These are also covered with a light dusting of silt. Not far from the first rig, which was Harry's middle rod, I found his left-hander, and this time he was utilising a green pop-up, which actually looks yellow in the green water. It's incredibly visible. This was the recast rig after a capture the night before, and you'll notice the lead is not as buried as the previous rig, which had been in place for 24 hours. This is probably as a result of the fish grubbing round in the silt and not disturbing as much in this area. After a little swim, I came across the third rig, and having looked at 3 different spots here, what I'd like you to consider is the colour of the silt. It's a very common misconception that silt is black. Deep silt, yes, that's dark, but surface silt rarely is. In fact, the majority of the silt that I've seen in a lot of different waters is actually grey. It appears a grey-green colour because of the colour of the algae in the water, which gives it a bit of a green tinge. But trust me, silt is not black, it's grey. Once again, everything is buried and well disguised, and in fact you wouldn't really know there was a rig in there. Finally, let's have a look at another prototype hook length that a lot of companies make a mistake with, and this is exactly the reason why I've got involved with the product testing and colour matching process. This was originally a prototype Cortex matte in silty black. As you can see, silt isn't black, and in fact a black hook link with a dark camo leader stands out like a sore thumb over the man of silt. After reporting back, the design team agreed that there was little need for a black colour in the range, and if the bottom is dark, then the weedy green or the dark camo text would perform much better than black, as almost everything in the underwater freshwater world, be it dark or light, has a green tinge.
Well, have some of that. Scott and Rob have gone home, but I'm still here. Done one more night. It's a bit of a cold one last night when we put this one on the map. There was frost on it, but yeah, 28-14, really happy with that. On the maggots again, it was the only bite for the lake last night, and it just proves that the maggots coming into winter time is an absolutely killer method.
Isn't it amazing how two completely opposite methods can end up with such spectacular results? It certainly made my winter for me. Scott, I was interested to see in that you were using this stiff Camouflage. And we all know from experience how difficult it is to work with stiff, strippable braids. Can you show us how you get the best from this incredible material?
Yeah, as the name suggests, this Camouflage stiff is a particularly stiff coated braid. Now the problems with that is tying down the knot. Sometimes you can get the coating slipping during the knotting process. So what we advise really is to strip back the coating off the braid and then just tie the knot into the braid itself. And I do that by a simple figure of 8 loop knot as we're attaching our rigs to quick change swivels. But that allows me to play around and make a hinge using the supple braid itself. So if I tie the overhand loop knot and then cut back one of the anti-tangle sleeves here, I've exposed some of the braid, as you can see, makes a rather nice hinge. Okay, so there's the rig with a hinge effect in it. Alternatively, if I didn't want that hinge, I can hide the stripped back section inside a full length of an anti-tangle sleeve, and therefore you can see there is no hinge effect in that at all. So that's probably the easiest way we can achieve that.
Fantastic, Scott, thanks for that. I mean, I'm a great fan of stiff links, and because of this material's inherent stiff link, I can see me using it on the quick change O-rings with my helicopter setups. Thanks, mate. Now, we're still in November, late November to be exact, and we're off up to Cambridge with Lewis Porter, who was fishing on the tricky Bundy's pit. He had some mind-blowing results up there, and it would be really rude of us not to go and find out just how he did it.
Well, just landed this stunning mirror, not weighed as yet, but predicting it could well tip the 30 pound mark, and if it does, it'll be the first 30 pounder this lake's produced for 17 days now. Testing the new Camouflage light in the soft version, 25 pound is the boom section on my hinged rig, which the pop-up section's 25 pound rigidity, so a really stiff hook section and a really supple boom section, just giving them something a bit different to what they're used to seeing. And it's the third fish in 24 hours at a double and a 20. Fish known as single scale, this caught out of 37 feet of water. It's November the 11th. There's been a really hard frost overnight, as you can see, and I'm really chuffed. Let's weigh her and see what she does. Well, no sooner had I just put that 30 pound mirror back, which actually for the record weighed 30 pounds and 4 ounces I think. The other rod went and landed this 27 pound common. Very happy with that, again on the prototype Camouflage hook link, so yeah, it seems to be doing the business. So let's get her back. You join me 3 nights into a 4-night session at Bundy's Pit in Cambridgeshire. It's the 12th of November, I've had 4 fish so far, biggest a lovely mirror of 30 pounds 4 ounces, which I managed to capture on film on a handy cam yesterday. The great thing about this lake is that it has depths of up to 60 feet. I'm currently fishing in 37 feet of water. It's a bit of a unique situation. You don't generally tend to encounter that often, but it's a great venue for testing products because the fish are very riggy, they're very pressured, the deep water makes them behave slightly different, the components can behave slightly different. So if we can catch fish up from a lake like this on these components, I'm sure they'll work anywhere. I'm gonna go back to the swim and let's show you some of the stuff I'm doing. Okay, so we're going to just talk through the rig that I've been using for the last 2 years on Bundy's Pit. In that period of time, I've had in excess of 65 fish to over 40 pounds, and the rig has changed very little other than one main component, which I've been very lucky to be testing since September this year, which is the new Camouflage hook link material, which we'll come on to in a moment. But first of all, let's look at the leader. This is 30 pound Illusion. It's a fluorocarbon leader which is practically invisible on the lake bed. Lead core is banned on this venue, so that's not even in the equation. That leaves the option of tubing or fishing your main line straight through. I much prefer this Illusion. It's invisible, as I've said before, it's very abrasion resistant, it sinks like a brick, and I know from working with Rob Hughes over the years just how good this material is on the bottom. The fish just can't see it. Moving on, got a standard lead clip setup. You can see I've got a green tail rubber and a brown clip. The bottom out there that I'm fishing on is clay. There's bits of gravel chinked in, bits of weed. There's so many different colours I just want to break up the colours on my rig, so mix and match. Then I've got a lead. This is a 4-ounce flat pair. It's very, very heavy and it's flat. Quite often I'm fishing on a shelf on this lake, so I want a flat lead so it doesn't roll down the shelf. The colour is also fantastic on the clay that I'm fishing. Again, it's got little bits of black in there, flecks of brown, some green, some grey shades. Fantastic for the lake bed that I'm fishing over. Next up, we've got the anti-tangle sleeve. This is very important because it helps to kick the rig away from the lead as it's falling through the water. So I don't get any chance of the rig wrapping up the leader, which happens, believe me, more often than you think with a lot of rigs that do not use this. Again, working with Rob Hughes over the past 2 years, I know just how bad tangles can be. So this eliminates that, and in my head, great confidence. Now, the piece de resistance, the new Camouflage Light. This is the soft version. We're also testing a stiffer version. The reason I'm using the soft version is because, as I've already mentioned, the lake bed I'm fishing on, it's made up of bits of weed, bits of clay, bits of dead debris. It's not the cleanest of clean bottoms. So if I use a stiff hook link material, there's a chance it could kick up out of the debris. So I'm using a very nice supple boom. Also, on this lake, most people tend to use a stiff hook link material, and I think the fish, they've just seen it a lot. So this supple material just makes a difference. The colour of this light is fantastic for the bottom I'm fishing over. It's got little colour breaks that help to break it up on the bottom, and I'm sure when you see some underwater footage that we've done, you'll see just how good the material is. I don't need to tell you, the footage doesn't lie. A couple of blobs of tungsten putty, that's just to help to pin it down. When a fish swims over, it's not going to waft around too much and spook the fish. We then come to the hook section, which is 25 pound rigidity. It's extremely stiff. I've created a curve in this rigidity using the Chod Wivy bim. This is attached to a size 10 swivel, which has got a blob of putty on the top eye, just to help to sink the pop-up, which we'll come on to shortly. The swivel is on a large loop on the Camotex. This allows the rig to move backwards and forwards like this, just gives it a greater degree of flexibility. The swivel can also spin 360 degrees, again giving flexibility, which just makes it harder for the fish to eject. Moving up to the hook, the most important part of the whole rig, a sticky sharp, reliable, strong hook. This is an Armour Point SR in a size 5. It's got a beaked point and an outturned eye, and it's perfect for the hinge rig that I'm fishing with. I've got a small D rig here, as you can see, and a micro hook ring swivel, to which I've got a Milky Toffee pop-up mounted. As you can see, this isn't any ordinary out of the tub Milky Toffee pop-up. It's got a little cork plug in it. The reason for this is because I'm fishing in depths of 35 foot plus, and I can't be sure how the water pressure would affect an off-the-shelf pop-up. However, I do know that the buoyancy of the cork will not be affected in the deep water. So by drilling the pop-up out and making it effectively a corkball pop-up, I know I'm going to achieve a consistent buoyancy for a hook bait that I can leave in the deep water for 24, 48 hours, but hopefully a fish will have it before then. I just attached this hook bait with what I call the blob method. It's a method that Chris Boyder, one of the Fox consultants, showed me a number of years ago. Simply just pull a length of hair braid through the bait, light it, blob it down, it's going nowhere. So that is my hinged rig. I don't call it the hinged stiff rig because it's got the supple boom and then the stiff hook section. Slightly different to the more traditional hinged stiff rig that you would have seen in the past, but it's a rig that's really, really doing the business for me. As I said, I've already had 4 bites on it in the last 3 nights. The last session that I did testing the hook link material, I had 7 bites in 5 nights. So it seems to be really working, and hopefully there's going to be more action to come on the final 24 hours as you join me on this session. I'm just putting the rods out for the night ahead now. The left and middle rod are out, final rod to go out. On the hinge rig, as we talked about earlier, Milky Toffee pop-up, but as you'll see, I've nicked a PVA bag with 2 fluorescent pop-ups onto the hook. What this will do is, firstly, it gives me added casting weight when I'm casting through the air. The resistance of this weighted end here will stop the rig from wanting to tangle with the lead. Secondly, as it falls through the water, it will create resistance, again keeping the lead and the rig separated. As the lead hits the bottom, this will pop up like so until the PVA melts, and it will just flutter down nicely. Now I don't want it to kick out extremely straight, because that doesn't give the fish enough rope to hang themselves. I want it to sort of land in a little coil like that, so whatever direction a fish sucks at the hook bait, it's got plenty of room to fly back into the mouth and hopefully nail them. Further benefit is, once these two pop-ups have melted in the bag, they come up to the surface and it gives me a visual aid to bait up with the catapult. So I know that my free offerings are all around the area. I'm fishing in 37 feet of water, so accuracy is key, because in that deep water it can be harder than on an average depth flake. So these pop-ups help me to do that. So let's get it out there. Just got my marker on the far bank, which is a big poplar tree. Just actually goes onto the clip. Not very far, but 37 foot deep. This lake has an average depth of about 35 foot. Just feel it down on a tight line now. It takes a bit longer than a normal lead. Bang. Let's hit the bottom now. Sink the line. So the lead's on the bottom now. The two pop-ups will be holding the rig up, as we said. They'll melt in a couple of seconds and the rig will just flutter down nicely over any debris. Again, that camo text off, with it being so supple, it'll just sit down on any debris on the bottom and give me perfect presentation. And as we've seen before, it blends in fantastically with the lake bed I'm fishing over. So let's get the rod on the rest, and then once those pop-ups hit the surface, we'll unleash a bit of bait on them. Clip the bobbin on. Now, due to the deep water, as the line starts to sink, you get a lot of slack. Like I say, this lake isn't like your average depth lake, so I'm getting a lot of slack here now. So I need to just pull a bit of this slack up, because I don't want the lines too slack that I don't get any indication. So we just gently ease it up. Just allow it to sit nice through the water. It'll be pinned down for a good 15-20 feet near the rig, which is the area that I want to be pinned down so as not to alarm the fish. The fluorocarbon leader that we talked about earlier will be sitting flush to the bottom, invisible. The rig will be sat perfect, and hopefully we'll get a bite. The prime time has been early morning, between 7:30 and 10 o'clock in the morning, so there might be a chance at night. I did lose one last night about midnight, so we'll just have to see and play it by ear, but I feel fairly confident, and hopefully when we switch the cameras back on, we'll have a nice Bundy's carp to show you. Well, this has been out 20 minutes, 15 minutes, something like that. It's the rod that we just cast, the right hand rod, screamed off. It took me completely by surprise. Normally you don't get bites this quick on this lake, especially having put a good dolloping of bait out there. They're obviously having it. A little bit out of breath because it's the adrenaline's flowing. But it feels very, very scatty. It's shaking its head. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a stocky the way it's shaking its head. Really scatty, not happy at all to be attached to my hook. The water's so clear and so deep that they can just propel themselves very quick, and it can be very nerve-wracking stuff. You know, it's not an easy lake by any stretch, and every bite's a prized one, especially in November. Well, luckily Jim's a couple of pegs down, and he's heard the take and the commotion, and he's come to lend me a hand. Like I say, these fish, these deep margins, it's hairy stuff, and it's hard enough just concentrate on trying to play the fish, let alone land them. So really appreciate that Jim's going to kind of help me. It's seen the net by the sounds of it. It's making the most of the 17 feet of margin that it's got to play in. This is a very bizarre bite time. I don't know anybody who's had a bite at this time for months, so it's very strange, totally unexpected. Come on, baby, come up. Here we go, Jimbo. I think we're ready. Here we go. Yes.
Well done, mate. Nice one.
Pressure off. Cheers, mate. Oh, there we go. Knock my rods over. Chunky one.
It's not a bad one, mate. It's got some depth to him. That'll do, won't it?
Well, we've just weighed her, 23 pounds, 13 ounces. Glorious common carp out of 37 feet of water. Totally out of the blue at a bite time that nobody's had a fish at late afternoon into evening for weeks and weeks and weeks. So it was on the hinge rig that we showed you earlier with the new prototype Camouflage boom, size 5 SR, and the old faithful Milky Toffee pop-up, and put up a real battle, and I think it's about time she gets to go home, back to the deep. Well, got the rods reset all before dark last night. Quiet night, just a couple of liners. The fish weren't as active as I was hoping they would be, but just on first light, the middle rods rattled away with this small but very perfectly formed common around the mid-double mark. On the hinge rig again, Milky Toffee pop-up again, 37 feet of water, and put up a real scrap, and yeah, really pleased that session's coming together nicely. Got a few hours left before I've got to head home. Hopefully got probably another 2 or 3 hours of bite time. So yeah, just sort of crossing our fingers that one of the big girls turns up before we have to head for home. Let's get her back. Well, the van's all loaded, it's time to head for home. Finished on 6 fish, which I'm pleased with for this time of year. The highlight obviously being the 30-pound mirror from a couple of days ago. It's been a productive session, not only in terms of catching fish, but for testing products such as the new Camouflage. The early results are really impressive, and I think we're on to a winner with that. So yeah, like I say, the van's loaded, and in 2 or 3 days' time she will be heading to France for a trip to Abbey Lakes to celebrate Rob Hughes' birthday, and to do a bit more testing over the other side of the big old river that separates us. So more fishing, time to get a shower and start all over again.
Okay, while you were away having fun with Lewis up at Bundy's Pit, I caught myself another carp. We're still in November now, late November to be exact, and it's Rob Hughes' birthday. Rob and the rest of the boys from Fox, plus a camera, headed off to Abbey Lakes in France. First and foremost, to do the Abbey Lakes Challenge, but also to continue to put the Edges range through its paces and put it up against some real whackers.
Well, here we are, we're in France. We've got the tunes rocking on the old deck. We're in convoy, there's 4 vans going down, there's a couple of lads already there. We've got a bit of a slow one in front of us. It's Lewis Porter and he can't drive. 65 mile an hour on a French motorway, it's just not on. But just look at it, the weather is looking cock on. The fish, they're certainly in the pond. They haven't been out for a while as well. Some of the big ones are due and we're hoping that this week will be it. It's my birthday bash, we're out for the Abbey Challenge. There's 11 of us in total. And this is what carp fishing is about, having a bit of fun with your mates. Here we are, the final journey is over. It looks like somebody's just putting up a new Abbey Lake sign there as we're turning up. Look at that. There we go, you come under the bridge, turn left, and it's been a nice, easy 2-hour journey coming down. And here we are. Darkness through the trees as we emerge into the Abbey. Now, we're going to go in, we're going to grab a coffee, have a chat, find out what's gone on, and we have arrived. Here we are. Well, hey, we're going angling! The idea behind the Abbey Challenge is that we get together for a bit of a friendly competition where the biggest individual fish wins. A motley crew of my mates gathered on the banks of Abbey where we drew for swims. With 4 lakes to choose from, there were plenty of options and also plenty of fish to go at. Race leader gets the privilege of looking after this rather fetching inflatable fella, and whoever had him when the final hooter sounded would be deemed the winner. Sean McSpadden got off to a dream start.
Right, let's get her out nice and safely and give her away. Just make sure you fold the net over. I find it the safest way. There's plenty of depth of water there, just slowly roll the net down. Make sure all its fins are tucked against its body, so you're not putting any undue pressure on them and bending them the other way, like bending your arm behind your back. And you can lift it safely out of the water onto the unhooking mat. A bit bigger than I thought. I've already unhooked it in the water, so there's no bits of tackle knocking about. And there she is in her winter colours. Really long, dark fish, as you can see. Again, testing a Reflex Dark Camo sinking braided hook length in a little solid rapid PVA bag. Full of pellets, a bit of chop boilie. Again, just before I lift it up, just check again. The fins are against its body for exactly the same reasons we did with the net. Let's give her away. $29.10.
Happy days.
Thank you, Scott. Really long, powerful fish. And there we go. £29, 10 ounces. Whey. Of Abbey Lake's carp.
Well, the first day is always a bit hectic. You've got to get into the venue, you've got to get set up, and you hope just to get the rods in place with the chance of a fish. And lo and behold, just on dusk, look at that, I've managed to bag one. This one is a couple of ounces short of £29, £28.14 in fact, and it's not actually the biggest that our guys have caught. Bonesy's had one, oh, he's going to flap, so just keep him like the mat. Bonesy's had one Sean's had one just shy of 30, but young Tommy Maker, he's doing it again. He's at a 37 pound. He's in the lead, but we're snapping at his heels. Going to get this one back. We'll talk about rigs and bits and bobs in the morning, because now it's time to get the rod back in the water and hopefully get another one tonight. And there he is. That's how clear the water is. You can see them a long, long way out, even in the dark. Go on, let's hope they feed tonight. That's one. Hopefully there's more to come. Well, nothing more for me last night, but I did mention yesterday when I had that fish just on darkness that I'd talk through the rig. So here we have it. Starting just at this end, the main line, 15 pound Warrior XT in brown. As it's dropping down into winter, the colour's dropping out the water, and I love that browny, greeny colour. It really hides well. But business end, last couple of foot, this is Illusion in 15. It's absolutely fantastic. It sinks pretty well, but trust me guys, when this is on the bottom, and believe me, I've seen it down there, when it's nailed down on the bottom, that stuff is as invisible as you can possibly get. So that's my choice of leader material. I'm a big fan of inline leads. At the moment I'm using a 3-ounce inline. I've got a quick change swivel on there, down to the new hook link material there. Now this is reflex light, and you'll see there it's got a disrupted camo pattern on it, and it really is a decent colour on the bottom. The material itself is just, it's lovely. That's the best way to describe it. It just sits so well. And as with any braid, the best thing to do is just a little drop of tungsten putty on it. Coming up to the hook end, I am an absolute fan of SSBP hooks. Armour Point SSBP, in my eyes, are without any shadow of doubt the best and most durable hook out there. Incredibly sharp, you can catch loads of fish on them. I put a small bit of shrink tubing on there as well, just to create a little bit of an extra kick. This is a size 6, I've got 2 grains of corn on there. I like a size 5, like a size 4 as well, but at the moment this is a size 6. Standard bag rig, coming up to 2 pieces of plastic corn. All of that is smashed into a solid PVA bag with the old Rapide loader system, chucked out into the pond, and hopefully that will catch me a fish or two. But as I say that, and I'm hoping to catch a few fish, I've heard just across the way on Attila, a young man by the name of Tom Maker is absolutely smashing the place up. So why don't you trip over there and find out what he's doing.
Right, well, I'm on Attila. It's Sunday morning. We've been here 24 hours now. 13 fish already. The 2 that you can probably see in there, I've literally just had. One of them's 37 1/4 and the other one's 38.10. And before we could do anything, rod's back out, 3 more spods over the top, and this one's rattled off. So just keeping the rod low, just playing it in nice and gently, and hopefully we can land another one. There he is, nice comment. Yeah, safety leg clip set up with a new matte Cortex hook link material, size 4 SSBP. I'm pretty sure this one's just on a single grain of plastic corn. There it goes. All right. And I'm not too sure if you can hear, but my other rod's going. So. Well, as you can see, Dad's just putting that one in the sling. That's probably a mid-20 common. And into another one now. I've got all 3 rods, literally, they're on. Well, I say an area the size of a ground sheep, but at 100 yards you're probably not that tight. Yeah, 3 baits close together, bit of spod out there, and literally when they move in on here, you can get
one bite, put it back out, you get another bite, or sometimes you can even get 2 or 3 while while you're playing the other ones will be going off. So yeah, it's a good tactic for an ear. Let's just say that. Right, Dad, I've got a funny feeling this is quite big. Oh, for God's sake, that's huge. Right, once its head's up, it should just keep moving. Going for it. That's a good one. That is a good one, that. Cheers, Luke. How big's that, Dad? Oh, yeah, no, that is a big one. Right, if I lift it straight into the... In fact, if I lift it up, Dad, and then just lift this net out of the way, yeah? Calm down, calm down. Side each. And let's just check its fin. Lift it up first. That'll do. 46, 14. Oh yes! Cheers. Cheers. Look at that. Yes. Oh, what a result. 46, 14. Yes. Epic. Bad boy fish. Oh. Look at the size of it. Look at that. What a unit. So, now we've got to photograph them all. So, the one that you saw me land, the first one, mid-20 common, a 37.2 mirror, a 38.10 mirror, and now this one, 46.14. And people avoid fishing it because they reckon the fish aren't big enough. But that's big enough for me in the middle of November. Well, there you go. As I was saying, sometimes one goes, sometimes 2 goes, but now all 3 of them are gone. So, again, just shows the importance of fishing free on a baited area, because when they move in, the little common come in first. Well, I say small, mid-20 common come in. The next one, 46, 14. So if you only had 1 rod on that area, I'm pretty convinced that every time the little ones come in, they have the bait, away they go. No rods left, the big ones come in, nice bit of free food for them. But if you've got any more than 2 rods on an area, 9 times out of 10 that the second one you hook is the bigger one. Oh, yeah, let's get this one in, hopefully, and we'll see what this is. As you would have probably seen on one of the runs, I've got the new Springer arm bobbins on. Basically what they're doing is, when you're fishing at long range, the tension on the arm is pulling your line down. So no matter how tight your lines, you've always got probably a 2-inch drop on your rod. So as soon as I'm getting anything happening that end, that bobbin is going to move this end. Whereas a normal bobbin, sometimes they're quite light and they just hold at the top and you don't see it until they've taken it out of the clip. But with them bobbins, you've got 2 inches of movement. And as soon as that fish takes, bang, you're straight up to the top. And there's just no messing about, no false indications. The lines are nice and tight, straight down to a 4-ounce lead. And start to say, as soon as that bobbin moves up or does any sort of movement, I know I've either been done or I've got a bite. And 9 times out of 10, it's a bite. Right, now that one's in the net, and we just heard over the radio that one of Fox's Dutch sponsored anglers has had a fish out of herring called shoulders, so let's go and have a look at that one. Right, well, no sooner have we got back from looking at the new ladies' world record of fishing herring called shoulders at 84 pound. I've put the rods back out and I've had another flurry of activity. This one is probably the best looking one I've had, 3712 common. Let's have a look at the other ones. This one, 37 and a quarter. And this one, 38.10. And finally, after that flurry of activity, this was the last one, £40.10. Had 19 fish now, 2 40s, 3 37s, a 38 and a 32. So let's hope for a few more tonight, and I'll show you what I'm doing in the morning. Look at that. Right, I'm just going to run you through the tactics and what I've been doing while I've been over here. So first of all, have a look at the rigs I've been using. The hook link material is a new matte Cortex. It's just following on from the 3 colours that are already available. Much better colour, and it's turned an already awesome hook link into an even better hook link. Off the end of that, size 4 SSBP hook. It may look big, but when you're catching fish with the mouths that you could probably fit an orange in, it really isn't big at all. Just a little bit of silicone there on the shank of the hook, that just holds the hair nice and tight. And hook bait on this particular rig is an 18mm cell. You can probably see, got a anti-tangle sleeve on the top there, and that's on a figure of 8 loop as well. And all that's doing is that allows me to change my rigs as and when, if the hook goes blunt or I have a breakage of any sort, and that's just attached to a new adaptive camo light leader material. So that's the rig I've been using. Let's just have a little look at the spod mix. In here, it's just very, very simple, exactly the same as I'd use in England. Sweet corn, just to add a visual effect, and as well I can change my hook bait presentation if I want. Chopped cell, matching cell response pellets, and hemp. That's just all just mixed together, and that goes out there in a spod, little and often, and we've been getting bites doing it. And that also enables me to have 3 different presentations on the hair. So that's the one that's probably done with the most fish. 14mm cell tip of plastic corn. Threaded down there is a large PVA bag of Little Gems pellets, as well as a few crush response pellets. Again, the one I just showed you, an 18mm cell bottom bait. And as well, on this rig here, we have a double bit of plastic corn, because there are a few crays here, so if we're having problems with the boilies, we can change over to that, and that allows us to carry on fishing effectively. Another little thing I've been doing, I believe it makes a difference, I'm pretty sure carp do like sweet things, is all of my hook baits are soaked in beetling before I cast them out anyway. But even before I cast, just give them a fresh little dip, and that's real sweet, intense flavour around the hook bait, and it just gives the carp something else to home in on. So that's what I've been using, and it's certainly been working, because yeah, because we've had a real good trip and a hell of a lot of big fish doing it as well. So that's it.
There we go, my third fish of the trip. Tactics for this one was a rapid, solid PVA bag with the new Reflex dark camo sinking braided hook length, 5 inches long. Happy days. Let's get her back and I'll show you how I caught it. As you can see, the weather's turned for the worse again, and I've just put that fish back. Let me show you how I caught it quickly. I've had it on a rapid PVA bag system. We're fishing Abbey Lakes, it's November, it's freezing cold, clear water conditions. There's a lot of bait boats on the fishery. I've chosen not to use one, just to fish a little bit differently. We've seen the odd fish show, and I just wanted to put a little trap, a patch of bait where I've seen fish, just to try to pick the odd one off from the great big masses of bait everywhere left by bait boats. It's my option. Luckily, it's produced that fish we've just put back. So let's have a look at the rig. As I say, I've had it on the rapid PVA bag, which I'll tie shortly and show you how I do it. But getting down to the business end, I've got a 15-pound dark camo Reflex hook length, which is a super soft sinking braid, perfect for PVA bag fishing. Down to the hook end, as you can see there, this is known as a shot on the hook rig. So I've got a size 8 S4 Curo hook with a Frutella pop-up. And as you can see there, I've folded a piece of braid over the hook and pinched the shot on, just burning the end very slightly, just to seal it on there. And what that enables it to do then is move up and down the hook, so it doesn't affect the way you hook a fish once it goes in. It just moves out of the way and exposes the main shank of the hook. And what that does then, as we've seen from the underwater footage, it creates what I call a cherry on the cake. I want this hook bait to be visible once the PVA bag melts. I don't want it underneath whatever's inside your PVA bag. I don't want it being hidden by the pellets. I want it to melt and that hook bait to be visible from the off. And what we found during the underwater filming, it just sits very nicely like that. Which also then, obviously, as soon as a carp picks that up, the weight of the shot on the hook pretty much makes it very hard to get rid of. It turns that hook point straight down into the bottom lip and makes it very difficult and cumbersome for a carp. Getting to the lead end, I've got a 3-ounce inline lead. Something which I will show you, but it's only at the concept stage, is a new inline lead insert that we are working on. This isn't a final model, but it shows you the concept, something very simple. As you see, it's sliding down the new 35-pound green leadless leader, and what that does then, it works against itself, so you can cast it at any distance you want, and it doesn't come off. You can slide a tail rubber over the end just to make it a little bit more secure. I've not needed to on this session, and then basically the fish will pull it away and off it comes. Very simple. Right, onto the bag. I'm using a small rapid PVA bag system, so I'll take the locking collar off. I always carry a little bit of base mix and a little bit of micro pellet. This is the PVA bag pellet from Mainline, absolutely perfect for these fishing situations. Creates a really nice, tight, compact bag. I always just put a little bit of each in the bottom, work it around a little bit, especially at this time of year when the PVA is taking a little bit longer to dissolve in the water. Give it a little blow. I'll work the contents to one corner of the bag. Drop that in very, very carefully, and then I just hold the hook bait in position. Work it into the corner, so your small amount of pellet in your base mix at one end, your hook bait's in your fingers, and I can see the shots positioned perfectly on the hook. I then work it back. It holds it all into position. Pat it down with the lead very, very slightly into the groove at the back, and we're ready to roll. And just keep patting the bag down so it's nice and compact. What I tend to do is add a little bit of base mix. It keeps everything dry, especially in these conditions. You don't want any moisture on the rig because it will dissolve the bag before you have a chance to cast it out. Nothing more frustrating. Then if you keep working the pellet and the base mix down in the bag, it becomes very, very compact, which you'll see shortly. I generally fill it a little bit much, just a little bit out, and just tap it on your knee or a hard surface. Then what I tend to do, it's only personal, is squeeze the bag very, very gently. And there we go. You can see in the bottom of the bag there you've got the hook bait, a bit of base mix keeping everything nice and tight and dry, and then work the magic with the PVA bag loader, and then just massage the corners, get it all nice and tight, especially if you're fishing at any considerable distances. Lick the corner, fold one side and the other one. Give it a little squeeze, and there you go. Perfectly formed rapid PVA bag. I call it the cherry on the cake rig. The 35-pound new submerge leader, which is very, very supple. There's no lead in it, so once that hits the bottom, even if it's in weed, it's going to create its own little clear area. The hook bait will be exposed, and with this new submerge leader not having any lead in it whatsoever, it'll follow all the contours of the bottom. A very, very effective presentation of PVA bag.
But here we go, it's the third morning. Still getting loads of bites. This is the 30th one now. Had another 40. That one's in there, we'll show you that one in a minute. Still putting a few spods out after each fish, and literally they just keep coming. So let's get this one in and we'll have a look at that 40. Well, there you go. That's what happens when you go to the toilet and leave your rods out. 42, 42.2?
Yeah, 42.2, yeah.
Oh well.
Thanks.
How about that then? 36 pounds, 12 ounces. I've been fishing maggots all week, exactly the same as on Manor, with one exception. I've been using the Camouflage stiff because in Fox Lake there are a load of crayfish. In fact, on the first night I was using the reflex. They managed to tangle it up fairly well, so I'm switched to the Camouflage stiff in light. Matches the sandy bottom that I'm fishing on perfectly. Then a little white pop-up, just over a size 5 SSBP, and that did the trick. Really happy with this one. I've been working pretty hard during the days behind the camera,
And then for the nights, getting the rods out. Happy days.
%, this is a junk. 100%. So I'm putting my money on it being 35 plus. Hey, this has got to be something special, this. There is 50s in there, isn't there? It just feels huge. Please. I don't think I've ever pleaded with a fish. And there we go. The session just keeps getting better and better. It's the full 40 now. 42 pound 8 ounces. Absolutely amazing winter action. Let's get it back.
Well, there we go. The challenge is over for another year, and we have a winner. He didn't just win it, he absolutely dominated it. This is the trophy that he's going to be getting his paws on. And the winner is, of course, the man that's still got the inflatable man. Who is it? Well, this fella over here. Look at that. Tom Maker, 46 pounds and 14 ounces. There you go. You are the 2012 Abbey Challenge winner.
Hey. Do I get to keep the man as well?
And there you have it, Tom Maker being Tom Maker. He really does take things to another level when it comes to catching numbers of fish. We also saw Sean using a prototype inline drop-off system, and I'm going to hand you over to Sean now, who's going to take you through the final article.
Well, we're up against it a little bit. Believe it or not, it's actually April. We've just had a snow shower. I first showed you the inline drop-off system back in November. At that stage, it was a prototype. I've now got the finished product to show you step by step. So, all Fox inline leads, as standard, come with a rubber insert. You just simply take the rubber insert out, chop the rubber insert, so you're just left with the fatter end to slide over your swivel. As you can see, that's what you got left. All you do is pop that onto the end of your swivel. The swivel I'm actually using for this demo is the new quick change drop-off swivel. So it's actually got to the end of the loop on the swivel a ring and also a very short quick change connector, which makes that everything sits nice and neat once it's assembled, which I'll show you shortly. So as you can see, put the rubber overmold over the swivel and simply get your Fox lead, pop that into the end. And there's the clever bit. Like I showed you back in November, there's been one significant change. What we've done in production is actually put a small rubber overmold over the end of the solid insert, which just makes it a bit more user-friendly. So you can just simply, straight out of the packet, take your insert out, and it should be a nice cushioned fit straight into the back of the lead. As you can see, this is the new £30 submerged leadless leader running directly through the insert. So it's actually working against itself. So you could, in theory, cast that out, because any force from that direction, it's not going to come off. You need the fish to pick your bait up and eject your lead. Inside the kit you also get a dedicated tail rubber. This just ensures, if you choose to, create a bit more tension on the insert, and just again makes everything nice and neat, tapered and in line, so there's far less things to tangle. So come to the business end, we've just got a small hook length on here for the demo purposes. You slide your anti-tangle sleeve down onto your swivel, so that's how you'd be fishing it. You've got the quick change swivel, the O-ring sitting nice and neat, your 30-pound leadless leader running alongside the lead through the insert. Very, very neat and effective setup. So here we go. That's sitting on the bottom, waiting for Mr. Carp to come and pick up your hook bait. Along it comes, picks it up. You can see the rubber overmold has popped out at the end of the leg and retained on the swivel. Then it's simply a case of bang. Your lead's gone, everything's retained on your leader, so you've not lost your solid insert, for example, that are on the market nowadays. It's simply a case of reload and get it back out there.
It's a point worth reiterating here. If you are fishing open water and snags and weed aren't a problem, then it's fine for your lead to stay on your main line. If, however, snags and weed are going to become a problem, then it's vital that you drop the lead. Not only will you catch more fish, it's infinitely safer for the carp. Now, we move into January and we're going fishing with Mark Fishers, who's fishing at a lake that's as far from his house as it's possible to be without fishing in another country.
Yep. Well, you join me 24 hours in session here over on Ruckley Country Park on the Isle of Wight, where I'm here to shoot my new series in total carp. I've got to catch a 20-pounder live for the cameras, which is no easy feat with the conditions as bad as they are. I've nothing so far, but I've just seen a fish roll just off to my right. Just put a nice little PVA stick on it. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll have a fish to show for you a little bit later on. Now, although Ruckley is around a 6-hour drive from my house, it really is a great venue to shoot this feature. It has a good stock of fish with a lot of 20 and even a few 30-pounders, and it really does fish well right through the winter months, even when temperatures are at rock bottom. Well, this is the swim I've chosen, and as you can see, it's sheltered from a cold northerly wind. The wind's on my back. It is an area of deeper water as well, and when I got here there was a few signs of life, a few little bubbles coming up, so it looked a great swim to start from. As I mentioned earlier, I've been fishing little PVA sticks, and this is the stick mix I'm using. It's finely crumbed cell boilies with some of the high leakage pineapple ready-mades as well, and they have a splash of a colour, really do increase the overall visual attraction of the mix. And to that I've added some Cloud 9 ground bait, and the whole lot is being put through a squat riddle, and the end result is a very, very fine mix, so there's no large food items in there at all. So that's the mix. Now I'll show you the rig that I'm using it with. Now, because the bottom here at Ruckley is predominantly silt and dead leaves, let me show you the rig I'm going to be using to ensure great presentation. Now, it's a helicopter rig, and ordinarily I would choose to fish that on a leg core leader, but the fishery rules here state that no leaders can be used. So I'm going to be fishing it what they call naked, which is basically the rig directly onto the main line. Now, in the past I've had some concerns about using this rig. I've always been a bit worried that the swivel rubbing against the main line directly like that, it could perhaps cause breakages. It's a lot of pressure being exerted onto the main line. But Fox have come up with this great little gadget called the Helichod buffer sleeve. And as you can see here, the hook link swivel sits on this tapered sleeve on the top, so it absorbs all the pressure, so no problems can occur. Now, below the sleeve I have a quick clip tied onto the main line, and that basically just enables me to change the size of the lead if I need to. And as we come up we have a hook link which is attached to one of these quick clip O-rings, and again that just enables me to change my hook link really quickly if I need to. And coming up we have a little tungsten sinker there. And we have a tungsten bead which fits above that, and obviously that just stops the hook link from sliding up too far. And the hook link itself is a new material called the Camotex, and it's got great camouflage. I've tried it in the edge and it blends in superbly with the colour of the lake bed. I've just had a little bit of putty on there just so it ensures it sinks and hugs the contours of the bottom. It sinks nice and flat. And we have a quick change pop-up weight, which is counterbalances this milky toffee pop-up, which I fished on a little D-rig. And that's it. Very simple, but it's one rig I'm hoping is going to work for me in the coming days. Well, here we are, mission accomplished. Just had this 22 pounder, that's my target achieved. It fell to the little D-rig pop-up tied on the new Camotex hook link. Well pleased, pressure's off now. Hopefully, might even be able to nick a bigger fish. Well, no sooner had I put that rod back out, off it goes again. This one's 25 pound 14 ounces. Lovely looking fish. Great bit of sport for the middle of January, and hopefully there's a chance of 1 or 2 more bites yet. Well, you've just seen me slip that one back, so I just thought I'd talk through my little D-rig in a bit more detail. The hook link I'm using is a new Camotex Soft, and it's a very supple coated braid. And the reason I'm using this particular material is there's quite a lot of debris on the bottom, and this will lie over the contours of the bed. If it lies over a leaf, it'll still be pinned down on the lake bed, whereas a stiff coated braid may perhaps just kick up. I've also added a couple of little pieces of putty on here just to ensure it's pinned down to the deck. We then have a small quick change pop-up weight. I'm using a BB size there, which critically balances the 10mm pop-up I'm using. Moving down from the pop-up weight, I've peeled back a small section of the coating in the braid, and what that does, it enables a nice hinge effect, and it allows the hook bait to move nice and freely, and it also maximises the hooking potential of the rig. We then have this small section of shrink tube, and that is how I've created my D-rig. And what I've done, I've tied a knotless knot, but the tag end I tied a small overhand knot. I've then threaded on a small micro hook ring swivel and then passed it through the shrink tube and steamed it in place over the eye of the hook. So that way I don't need to pass the line through the eye of the hook 3 times, which is how you would ordinarily create a D-rig. So it's a much simpler, much easier way of doing things. Now the hook bait, that's sat on this micro hook ring swivel, and that's just attached with some bait floss, which I just bob down to secure the hook bait in place. And the hook itself is a size 8 SSSP hook, short shank straight point hook. So the end result is a nice tidy little neat rig which has already caught me a couple of fish, and hopefully there will be a couple more to come. Slackened all the line off there to allow it to sink. The line I'm using here, it's the Illusion XS, which is a fluorocarbon line, and it really does sink like a brick. On very small pressured waters such as Ruckley, the carp can become very, very wary by anglers' lines and rigs, etc. So this illusion, because it sinks down and follows the contours of the lake bed, it's very hard for them to detect, plus is virtually invisible in the water. And the bobbins I'm using here today actually grip on the line, so that enables me to fish a slack line up to the rig while still having it sort of tight into the clip here, and that really does maximise bite indication. You see, just a few movements there and you get a great indication. There we are, trap set. Well, it's been a fairly quiet afternoon. I've seen virtually no signs of feeding fish. Then out of the blue, it's had 3 or 4 bleeps, and as you can see, we've got a fish on. That took me a bit by surprise because today the activity's been virtually nil. Temperature's taken a bit of a tumble as well. We've had rain for the past few hours, and that's undoubtedly cooled the water off. This fish is pulling a bit. Doesn't feel small, but it's such a good average size here at Ruckley. It's going to be a decent fish, whatever it is. It's got a bit of side chain, it's just going underneath them and branches over there. I think he's clear. He's just down here now. Yes. Got my net over this side. Who's moved my net? It's great to be getting action like this in the early part of January. It really is great testament to the fishery, that it can produce fish in such poor, abysmal conditions. Much of the mainland at the moment, they've had a fair bit of snow this past 24 hours. Luckily managed to escape that here, but we have had rain and sleet, so it's not exactly tropical over here. The water's so coloured you only really get to see them when they're right on the surface. There it is, it's ready for the net now. That's a decent fish. We got him. That's not a bad fish at all. Looks a 20, another 20 pounder. That's a right result. There's the rig that did the job. That one was proper nailed, that one. Right. Nice looking fish, let's get him weighed. 24.14. Well, as you can see, conditions have really taken a turn for the worst. Fishery owner Tim assures me it never snows on the Isle of Wight, but here we are. Conditions last night were really cold. Temperatures down to -4, -5, and I've had no more fish since I last spoke to you. To be honest, it's looking pretty dead out there. There's been no signs of feeding fish whatsoever. And snow on the mainland is really bad. The missus has rang me, she's stressed out. There's about a foot of snow at home. So I think I'm going to call it a day and head off back home.
For January, that's an incredible result. And when you've got the pressure of a camera and having to catch a carp for an article, come snow, rain or shine, Mark would have been over the moon with his successes. We're going to change tack slightly now and take a look at an under the radar carp fisherman. Last year this man caught arguably the country's best looking 50 pounder, and he's going to share with us right now just how he did it. He goes by the name of Lee Walton, and believe me when I tell you, he is one incredibly gifted angler.
I've managed to track Lee Walton down on the lake that he's currently targeting. It's early April 2013. I'm going to pick his brains about a capture that I was privy to last summer, and I got to see a magnificent 50 pounder on the bank. Hello Lee.
Hi Lewis.
Nice to see you again, mate.
Oh indeed. Could be a bit warmer, but you know.
At least the sun's out.
Trying its best.
Last summer then, 50 pounder, immaculate fish, one of the best in the country arguably.
Yep. Well, we both know that much. So
Talk us through it, mate.
well, I mean, it all starts a long time ago, kind of 7-8 years ago. First seen a picture of the fish. Didn't even know it existed to that point. Dave Moore showed me a picture of it, and just absolutely blew me away to think that there was a fish that had such appearance and was still under the radar. It was just unbelievable. So from that moment on, it was kind of, we need to be looking at obtaining a ticket for that water, and just to, you know, did the usual thing, just wrote, applied and waited, and 7 years later the ticket arrived and job on. So
fast forward 2012, you've got your ticket, starts 1st of June I believe.
Yeah, it's you know, it's a late one, so you know, things are growing, things are green, and you know, I'd got a little bit of an idea of what I was going to do because I'd fished a lake just down the road, so I'd been privy to be able to have a look at the lake and see what it was about, and very weedy, as most tend to be these days. So it was, you know, until we put a lead in the water, we didn't exactly know what we were going to find, you know. So decided to just take it from there.
And you was successful from the off? You caught fish straight away?
Yeah, you know, I had a fish on my first session, which is nice. Gives you confidence. You know, as I know we're going to talk about chod rigs, that's how I always start. It gives you, you know, an easy access into a water, and you can, you know, I just tend to observe and look where fish are and chuck to these fish, and hopefully, you know, the chod rig will do a job for you to start with until you find, you know, other areas to fish. But it's a quick way to get going, and
without having to thrash the water foam with a
yeah,
marker
exactly.
float.
I mean, as you well know, I mean, I often turn up late at night after work, or I'm very early morning. Having, you know, I do travel quite a bit for my fishing, so there's a lot of turning up, and you're faced with what you're faced with, and you get on with it. You don't do too much work there and then, and just build a picture as you go along. So, you know, this little rig, as much as it is overused, it does, for me, get me going until I know otherwise, you know.
And so you've turned up at the lake, first session, you've gone in with chod rigs, caught a fish on your first session, as you say, so straight away you've got a rig that you know is working on that water. So I suppose for the following sessions you carried on with the chod rig?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's difficult to change something when you think, well, that worked. So yes, second trip down, you do the same. And that second trip, caught again. I was building a little picture actually, where I was using the chod, and I'd catch a fish, and then I'd maybe change a few things, bait an area and change my rig, and then nothing happened. So I thought, it seems that this is, you know, it's certainly helping me catch, so why should I change? I look to change off it, but at the same time it was telling me it's working, so for the moment, stick with, yeah.
So the main target was obviously this incredible 50-pound linear that you said first came onto your radar a few years previous. You caught that fairly quickly, not very long into the ticket at all.
A lot would say too quickly, and so would I actually. But
how many nights was it?
In total, I think it was 7. Not sure, 7 or 9. Don't exactly keep records like that, but from memory, it would have been 7 or 8.
Well, I remember getting the phone call 6 o'clock in the morning. I knew exactly what was coming, because you're not one for ringing people that early unless you need a photograph of a very big fish, and it was the phone call I'd more than happily took at that time. Me and Alexi, we'd seen you a few days before, and I was fishing the BCAC with Alexi, and we reeled in, left the swim, drove from York all the way back to Peterborough, and we got to see an amazing fish. We'll see some footage of that fish running, I'm sure. Was that was on the chod rig as well?
Yeah, well, like I said, second session in, you catch again, and then third session down, I kind of thought, well, I'm nicking a fish every time I go down, and so my third trip down, I thought, well, we'll see if we can do the same again, and then I'm not going to change onto what I was doing. I'm just going to stick where I was with the chods, and hopefully try and get 2 fish. So as we spoke the night before, you came down and see us. The first morning, caught one, chod again. So I sat that day long and saw a few fish show. There were a big show on, actually, a big show of fish. Didn't know whether to move on to them, or I had the idea that this big fish would probably be a loner, so you kind of get these ideas in your head, and I thought, should I stay away from the pack of the fish and up the big ones on its own, or should I just get into catching fish? And I thought, well, early days on a lake, for me, you've just got to get catching fish. That fish has got no real history as such where you could target it, so it was just, let's get catching fish. So I did that. I moved again, a chod, and then the following morning,
you've caught a fish.
Yeah, caught a fish.
Most people would be happy catching a fish.
Yeah,
stay put, but you've decided to up sticks, move right round to the other side of the lake.
Yeah,
and set up on showing fish.
They weren't a million miles away from me, but they were the other side of the lake. They were just out of reach. So yeah, I sat on my hands all day watching them and thinking, should I go and get a lead in amongst them? So I did. I took the decision, went round, and ironically, as soon as I put a lead in amongst them, they stopped, as they tend to do these days.
But
so,
you've used the chod, so you know it's fishing. It's effectively fishing for you. You haven't thrashed it. It's a one cast job, I suppose.
Yeah, well,
it's there and it's fishing for you.
Even that setup, it just shows you, with one cast, the fish stopped what they were doing. They knew something could hit the water, and immediately they stopped doing what they're doing. So I just proceeded to put all rods out, and then just hope they were still in the area or wanted to come back to the area, and we'd pick some action up.
Bright baits or dull baits?
Yeah, bright baits again to start with. Not usually my thing. I have a few favourites, and that's particularly one of mine. So pink pepper as it goes, and 3 of those went out.
Any free offerings?
No, none at all. None at all. No, I might sometimes flick a bit of bait into an area and not be fishing it and keep an eye on it. That's one of my little things to do. And I did actually. My left-hand rod was the rod, my last cast, which was the one the fish came on the following morning, and that almost went to an area where I was going to put some bait. So a lot of luck plays its part, and that's
carp fishing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you look back and you accept what you get.
So so the left-hand rod on the chod rig, pink pepper popper, as you said.
Yep.
It's rattled off. How soon into the fight did you know you was attached to the one?
Difficult one to say, and people will go, yeah, you can say that. But at the exact time, it was unbelievable. The take itself was just nothing I'd experienced. It's a phenomenal fish, and we both know it doesn't do a lot of captures, and I actually think once the lake does weed up, the reason why it doesn't do a lot of captures is it probably gets lost a lot. It's just an animal.
It's shaped for it, isn't it? Long and torpedo.
It's a phenomenal fish. It's a male, and it's angry with it. And I was certainly convinced enough at that immediate sort of juncture to think this could be the one, and proved to be.
So it's in the net?
Yeah.
Obvious.
Bit of drama in between that, I have to say, but yeah, it went in, and unbelievable when you see it, you know, and nothing can kind of prepare you for that. It's all right seeing pictures, but when you see them in the flesh, them kind of fish are just unbelievable.
Rare.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I do keep fish, so I know that, you know, it's a strange one that males don't tend to grow that big.
Just to explain for the camera, when Lee says he keeps fish, he doesn't mean when he catches them, he keeps them for himself.
No.
He is into the koi keeping game.
I should explain more. Yeah, I do keep fish at home. I've got my own pond, keep koi and so on. Don't show them, it's just purely for my own personal pleasure. But yeah, you do see in the koi industry that, you know, males don't make big fish. We know that through, you know, people stocking fish into lakes as well, that females are the one, and the less scales, you know, the bigger they probably will grow, and they do. It's well documented. So to have a male that is so big that is a male and has got scales is a rare beast, yeah. So
high up on a lot of people's targets,
yes.
that fish in particular. So the chod rig's done the business for you very quickly.
Yep.
Very little disturbance, one cast, next morning it's away, single up bait, bright one up off the deck in its face, and you've got the target fish. So I think it's about time we took a look at chod rigs in a little bit more detail, and one rig that's very, very in vogue at the moment is the naked chod rig.
Yep.
A lot of lakes now banning lead core and leaders, so more and more people having to fish the chod rig on a naked format with the line straight through. It's part of the Edges range, which I know you've been lucky to have a little bit of input in testing as a sponsored angler and a shopkeeper. There's a couple of specific products for naked chod rig fishing, so should we have a look at them in a little bit?
Yeah, indeed, yep.
Okay then, Lee, let's take a look at these chod rigs in a little bit more detail. We've got a couple to look at, both of them fished naked style. First up, the fixed chod rig, as it were, and it's incorporating the tungsten chod bead, which is in the Edges range. Over the lead we've got the buffer sleeve here, which has got this little female recess in the top, which will become clear why that's there in a little while. And then up the naked main line, a bit further, we have the tungsten chod bead itself. Now this can be fixed any distance above the lead. It grips really taut, so you can just slide it to the position you want, and you'd set it to maybe 6 inches, 12 inches higher up than the depth of the weed that you're fishing over. So for this to work, you need to know the depth of weed that you're fishing over. Now you've got the tungsten bead here. This just pops off, so it's nice and safe, and you can slide your rig on it. This is one of these chod rigs that he uses, really simple, pretty standard. That slides on there, and then that gives you your weight to sink your hook link nice and gently down over what you're fishing on. When you hook a fish, it will just slide down the line as you're playing the fish, and the male on the end of the bead will just slot there, as you can see, into the female on the buffer sleeve. And what that does is it secures it all nicely in position. It gives you a bit of shock absorption in the fight, and it also protects your naked main line from any damage which could be caused by the swivel. Problem with a lot of the naked chod rigs that you see is people fishing it directly on your main line, and it can damage, the swivel can damage, 0.30, 0.35, whatever sort of main line you're using, it could be damaged. So that's the fixed chod. But as I mentioned, you need to know the depth of the weed that you're fishing over, and as you've already previously covered with your sort of fishing, you're not often using a marker float, thrashing the water to the foam to find out the depth of the weed. So in this situation, you wouldn't really know what depth to set that bead at. So you tend to favour the sort of fly-in chod rig as it's known.
Yeah, definitely. So I mean, this one for me is just a little bit more versatile. That's good when you know what you're fishing over, and the angler can set it where he wants to suit his own needs. This for me is more suited to what I do, where like you rightly say, fish are in the swim. Unless I know for sure what I'm fishing over, I have to second guess it. But generally I would have a bead that would be fixed, sort of 3 foot, 4 foot, depending on what I would have a feeling for. But this allows the chod rig to fly up in the water and keep away from all the bottom debris and so on, and effectively gets you fishing.
And that'll just flutter down.
Yeah, it's just gonna flutter down, above whatever it's going to settle on, and whether it be a bit of silkweed, bit of Canadian, but effectively that gets you fishing.
So a cast anywhere rig.
Yep.
without causing any disturbance. And I noticed, just looking here, you're using for this the heli chod buffer sleeve that's in the Edges range, and again, as we talked about with the fixed chod rig with the tungsten chod bead, you swivel when you're playing a fish, that will sit on there, and that again protects the naked line.
Yeah.
And we've got this little bit of foam here, and you've set that up drop-off style, which this particular sleeve allows you to do. I suppose if you're using a heavy lead, 3 ounces, 4 ounces, to get to the fish where you're seeing them show, it's a bit of a heavy lead to be then playing so close to the fish. So you've set that up to be able to eject on the bite.
Yeah.
This piece of PVA melts. Imagine that's melted in the water, so that's gone now. You hook the fish, and then that will just boom, off she comes.
Yeah.
Lead is gone. You've got this large ring, which again is part of the Edges range, attached to your line, which is going to stop obviously your hook link on your sleeve from coming off your line. And a lot easier to land a fish with no lead, especially like you say if you're casting it right into some thick weed.
Yeah.
Last thing you want is a load of weed wrapped around your lead causing you any troubles, especially when you're fishing for 50 pounders like you often are.
There's a lot of things come into play, and I think, you know, if you can, you know, if you can get rid of that lead, it certainly increases your chances of landing your fish. So for me, this setup suits exactly my needs. It gets me fishing, and then once fish is on, you know, I'm safe in the knowledge that lead is going to be ditched, and I'm just fighting the fish. I've no fear that lead is going to come into play, get snagged up, caught up on weed, you know, because these things can drag a lot of weed around, and the weight aspect close to your hook, you know, is a big factor in losing the fish.
So just going back to the other side of where the hook link is, you said you've got this stop here, you'll set that 3-4 foot above the lead, dependent on where you've got a feeling of what the sort of depth of weed is. What is your stop there? You've got, what's that? That's a tapered sort of mainline sinker, and then a bead of 4-5 mil. Is that a 5 mil bead?
It's a tungsten bead. So effectively, all you're doing, it's a stopper for your swivel, your chod itself. So like you say, you'd have a second guess that you'd know a little bit about the lake, and you'd guess. You know, if you weren't sure at all, you could set your bead at 6, 7, 8 foot. There's no danger at all. You know, that's going to fly back and rest against that, and then just flutter down and sit on what it will do.
And again, totally safe. I see with the taper there, I'm guessing the swivel can get onto that sinker very easily.
Yeah.
And then that's just a case of popping the bead off and out. Sharp hook as beads off, and the fish is left not trailing any line.
There's no danger aspect at all to it.
Which is always important with any rig. And again, exactly the same hook link as what you could fish on a fixed.
Yep, that's just standard. Everybody has their own little way, curve, you know, and so on. But that's a unique thing. We're not going to tell people how to do that. That's entirely up to them. But it's the system we're more looking at. You know.
So two very effective chod rigs.
Yep.
Different styles, and you know, as and when you would use them.
Yep.
Both presentations equally effective in their own situation. So I think that's the chod rigs covered. Thank you very much for agreeing to step out of the shadows and take a bit of limelight for once. Your captures certainly deserve a bit of exposure, mate. So hopefully you found that as insightful as I have.
What an incredible capture of a truly special carp. Now, there can be little doubt of the impact that the chod rigs had on carp fishing over the last few years. And Scott, you've developed our heli chod buffer sleeve and chod bead, haven't you?
Sure have, mate.
Yeah, and you've incorporated one wonderful little trick that makes this system ultra safe.
Yes, mate. Well, during the injection moulding process, we've created this little hole at the top of the chod heli buffer sleeve and also on the chod buffer sleeve itself. Now, this allows us to fish the helicopter or the chod style beads with a drop-off lead. Basically, there's a couple of times where I'd use a drop-off lead. Now, if you only want to lose that lead should the fish become in contact with any snags or anything, what we've done here is I've created like a little loop. Basically, this one's made out of lead core, so I've spliced a small loop in the lead core and I've tied it to a large O-ring here. Basically, what we shall do is we take a needle and put it inside the hole,
Yeah.
as you can see there, and push it out the bottom of the bead. And taking the lead, we'll slide the lead onto the lead core spliced loop, like so, and then take the loop with the baiting needle back through the hole on the buffer sleeve. So we've just got to carefully pull everything through together, keeping the line taut and the little loop itself. And as you can see, I'm just going to pull it through there. So we've now got the little loop through the top of the buffer sleeve. So what we're going to do now is just take a little tiny piece of PVA nugget, roll it into a tiny little cigar, nice tight cigar, and then we'll push it through that little hole, that little loop there. So as we push it through all the way in, now basically that little PVA nugget's stopping the loop from pulling back through the buffer sleeve. I'm just going to trim it off like so. So what we've got now is a little PVA nugget holding that lead onto the rig itself. So obviously when that melts in the water, we'll minus the PVA nugget. Okay, and now should that fish contact any big snags or nasty things like that, basically the line can pull through and pop the lead away. Okay. So, but also what you know, I've come to occasions where I want the fish, if I'm using big leads at range with helicopters or chod beads, we use the same style system, but I want it to come off easier. I want it to come off when the fish picks the lead up, so it shakes the rig and it drops the lead straight away, and then the fish can come up away from the snags. So basically, again, this one here, what I've done with this one is I've tied a small loop of 45-pound armadillo. Now this is a lower diameter than the loop on the lead core, so it allows the loop to pull through the hole easier, and therefore you won't need as much resistance for it to come through. So again, just pushing the needle through the hole. On this one is the heli-chod buffer sleeve, and then we'll just slide the lead onto that little loop. Bear with me on fingers and thumbs. And then again, we just want to pull this back through using the latch on the needle. Okay, you want to pull it back through the bead and out the top she pops. And again, just open that little loop up. And the same again, you put your little PVA nugget inside there. Now obviously when this PVA nugget melts on the bottom, because this is a lower diameter little loop, it pulls off easier.
Yeah.
So should that fish pick up that bait, it will release the lead quickly and then come up in the water away from the snags.
That, Scott, was absolutely brilliant. The best and safest way I've ever seen of detaching a lead where you're using a chod and a helicopter setup. Absolutely fantastic. Now, we're off back with Mr. Pitchers, who's venturing onto a water he's never ever seen before. However, like all good carp anglers, he's done his homework and he's found out that zigs are the way to go.
Well, I've just made the long drive down from my Teesside home to here in Bedfordshire, where I've come to do a 24-hour guest session on a syndicate that I've got my name down on. The owners, Keith and Jordan, have very kindly given me permission to have a bit of a try before you buy scenario. So I've got 24 hours ahead of me. I've already been for a walk around the lake. I've picked my spot already on the edge of this cold, freezing cold northerly wind that we've got. You can hear a bit of background noise. It's right next to the A421, so you have got a bit of background noise to contend with, but bear with me. So anyway, picked me swim, looks great for a bit of zigging today, so I want to get the van unloaded and go for a little walk. Just got the final rod cast into position there. Just tightening the line up so it's absolutely springboard tight. That really does greatly improve the bite indication, because I'm fishing with long hook links, because the fish have got so much room to manoeuvre. They've got that sort of long, that big arc in which they can move around. By having the line as tight as this, as soon as that lead moves, it's transmitted back as an indication. So there you go, that's really tight now. Got a good plumb round in the swim, and found an interesting feature. Got a gravel bar which comes up to about 14 foot of water, and either side of it's about 18 foot. So I positioned 3 zig rigs just over the back of that bar in that 18 foot of water. Got them at varying depths as well, anything from sort of a few feet below the surface to mid depth. I've also tried a few different coloured forms. I've got a yellow, a black and a red. Because we've got quite low light levels here today, quite often it's a coloured form that can produce in conditions like this. Needs a fish straight away. It isn't actually that unusual. If you can present a zig right in the faces at a depth in which they are sat and the depth they feel comfortable, quite often you can get takes very, very quickly indeed, as I've just shown here. Doesn't feel a bad size fish. Anything's welcome on a cold day like today. I have nav kited. It's coming in a lot easier now. We got him. Well, here he is. As you can see, that one fell on the red zigger liner, and as you can tell, he is absolutely nailed. They really do hugely improve the hook holds. There he is. Probably about 10, maybe 11 pounds. Not a big fish, but on a cold winter's day like this, certainly very welcome. And a very nice start to the session too. Well, good morning everyone. As you can see, managed to bag another fish. This fish actually came just before it got light, about 5 o'clock this morning. It was still pitch black, and it really does expel the myth that zigs only work through the day. The carp's night vision is far superior to a human's. They've got no problem in finding little food items. And it's actually brightening up a little bit now, so I think there's going to be a few more fish coming up through the day. Let's see. Well, we're in again. It's a left-hand rod that's produced this time, and This will be the second fish if I land it on the black foam. Now this fish does actually feel a bit bigger than the past two. The past two have both been the new stockies that have gone in, but this one does feel a bit more sizable. Oh, he's been back over these rods 2 or 3 times. I don't know how I've managed not to wipe out the other 2 rods, but trying to work out where he is. Yeah, it definitely feels a bigger fish than the past 2. Oh, here we go. Oh yeah, that is a bigger fish. The lead's come off, that makes it a lot more easier for landing them. And there we go, we got him. Yeah, that is a bit bigger. And here he is. This one's about £15. Great fish for the time of year. I tell you, he's like a block of ice. My hands are going numb just holding him. So in conditions like this, it really is a great result, and I'm well chuffed. Well, so far this session you've seen me using the zig liners, and you might be wondering why I'm choosing this particular setup over a more traditional standard zig rig. Well, there's several reasons actually. First of all, if we take a zig that's been tied on a hook with an inturned eye, you can see how narrow the gape is. The way the line exits creates a really narrow gape, and that does massively impede the hooking potential of the rig. And in complete contrast, we have the zig liner, and because of the liner sleeve, the line exits higher up the hook and the gape is increased massively, so the hooking potential is superb. The next reason is when we tie up a zig like this on a knotless knot, the way the line exits the hook from beneath. But when we're using the fine diameter lines that are often associated with fishing zigs, these lines can become damaged by the eye of the hook. And in complete contrast again, with the zig liner, the hook's tied on either with a grinner knot or a Palomar knot, so the line isn't exiting from beneath the eye, so the line won't become damaged at all. And also, when the line comes out of the sleeve, it does so by the soft rubber, so the line is protected. Now, the line I use when I'm tying up my zigs is a zig and floater line. And the reason I like this particular line is it floats very well, and also has an incredibly high breaking strain for its diameter. Right. The hook I'm using is the triple SP pattern. That's a short shank straight point. I'm using it in a size 10 here. I'm going to tie it up with a Palomar knot. And we thread the line through the eye and then back through, like so. And then with the loop we tie an overhand knot. And then we thread the hook through the loop we've just created. A little bit of spit. Then pull it all down tight. And when you tie this particular knot, you don't get any sort of crinkles in the line. It doesn't damage the line at all. Just trim that off, like so. The next thing is we thread the foam into the loading tool. I'm going to go with black foam here. I find it works really well when you've got bright conditions like we have today, bright sunshine and clear skies. So I loaded the foam into the tool. The next thing is to load it in the sleeve. Like so. And just trim it down. Like that. Then it's just simply a case of sliding the zigger liner down the line and over the hook. Just wet it a bit first. And there we have it, simple as that. And obviously the beauty of the zigger line is you can create any sort of colour combination you like with the zigs, change them in an instant. I'm using black foam and a black sleeve here, but yellow foam in black sleeve is another great combination. You can mix and match, see which one works best on the day. So there you have it, you've seen how effective they are. I managed to catch 3 carp this session, despite it being freezing cold. So why not tie one up and give them a go. Right, well it's time for me to hit the road. Just bringing in the last rod now. But it's certainly been a great session. Managed to catch 3 fish. Conditions haven't been great, but there's freezing northeasterly wind and it's still essentially the middle of winter. So to get 3 fish, I'm certainly going home happy. Also, it just goes to show that the zigs they work right through the year, and these zigger liners, of course, have worked a treat. So that's it for me for now. I'll see you soon.
Pictures producing the goods once again and showing the effectiveness of the clever little zigger liner. This March has been cold and miserable, the worst that I've experienced in a time when the carp simply refused to play ball. One man, however, took advantage of a couple of situations during March, top hauler Mark Bartlett. We join him now 2 nights into a bitterly cold session when 1 or 2 bites would have been a major result.
Well, it's absolutely freezing. We're at Sandhurst Lake in Hampshire, trying to catch ourselves a couple of carp, and we've actually managed to get one. 6 o'clock in the morning. Just received a take on the left-hand rod. I've been here for a couple of nights now. I've managed to bag 8 fish so far. I wasn't expecting much action, to be honest. With the temperature, the ground's solid, the nooking mats are frozen, but we're into a fish. The fish at the minute, they're not actually feeding properly. Just sat out in the middle of the lake because due to the water being so cold. So what we're doing is we're fishing zig rigs out into the middle of the lake where the fish are just sat mid-water, and every now and again a fish is picking one up out of curiosity and making a mistake, which bags us a fish. Nice sandburst carp in the freezing cold. I've unhooked the fish and got it residing in the net, just in the margins. It's absolutely perfectly fine. And before I get my camera out and we have a look at the fish and take the pictures, I'm just going to pop my rod back out, because more often than not, this time of year, where there's one, there's more. They all huddle up together. They follow one another around in the lake. So it's well worth getting your rod straight back out, because you could have another bite within minutes. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to show you this fish that I've caught. Well, this is number 9, the ninth fish of the session so far. A little mirror, 19.5 pound this one, but nonetheless it's a stunner, as you can see. I don't know if you can see actually on the fish, but there's a couple of leeches just on his gill cover there, and this is due to the reason, because the water's so cold at the moment still, the fish, they're not really responding to food, and they're just waking up. Hence the reason why the best tactic to catch these fish has been the single hook baits and the zig rigs that we've used. You can also tell the fish is not at its full weight yet, but when the water warms up, these fish, they'll definitely get on the munch. They've had a long hard winter, and they'll pack some weight back on very quickly, and this will be a 20-pound fish in a matter of weeks. And it's a stunner, as you can see. Well, you saw that last fish, and it's only 45 minutes later on now. We've received another take, this time on the middle rod. Same thing though, little zig rig out in the middle of the pond. This one's a little bit higher than the other rod, so obviously there's a few fish cruising around out there, and we've managed to intercept another one, which is good. It's so cold though. Again, when I'm playing my fish on the zigs, I like to keep the rod nice and low. You see a lot of people with the rod up high, but I've always played the fish with the rod down low, and they seem to come in a straight line. I mean, you do what's good, good for your own fishing, but this works for me. And then when you get them close to the net, you can lift the rod up. But by keeping the rod low, it tends to bring them in a dead straight line. They don't kite around, and also it keeps them up. It's something that I got from my match fishing, and by keeping the fish up in the water, it's away from any debris out in the lake, any weed beds, any obstacles that could cut your line or cause you to lose the fish. It's a good one. It's a nice fish, this one. Just seen it, it's a common carp, and looks like it's a good sized one. Again, I can see that I've dropped the lead straight away on the take, which has made me get the fish in really quickly. It's putting up a good scrap as well. That's a nice fish. Happy days. That's a nice fish. Here she is. 25 pounds 6 ounces of sandust common carp. What a stunner. Put up a real good scrap as well. Used every bit of her weight to bully me around a bit. What a beautiful fish. What we'll do is we'll put this one back and I'll show you exactly how I've been catching these carp over the last couple of days. So you know, so you can get out and get there, bag yourself a beauty like this one. When I started my session, I turned it up and I didn't really know what was going to happen. So I'm just going to run through with you how I started the session and how I've actually ended up fishing now. I turned it up, I thought they're not really in the mood for the food with the way the water's so cold. So I thought I'd just start on something small and bright. I've got a little pop-up rig here, little white hook bait. The reason for this is I just want to catch the fish's attention. They're not really feeding that much. So something real bright, blatant, rather than piling in food to them, they're not up for it. So this is the ideal thing for it. I've got a size 4 SSBP. It's a good hook. You don't want to be messing about. If you get a bite, you want to put that fish on the bank. So none of this airy-fairy stuff. Size 4 hook, bank your fish. Got a 25 pound weedy green matte Cortex hook length. Again, it's a strong hook length. It's not going to break no matter how much pressure I put on it. It's reliable and the one for me. Around the lead, this is a Trans-Khaki slick leg clip. Now, these slick leg clips are designed for easy ejection of the lead. As you can see, if I take the tail rubber off there, there's no ridges at all on that. So when you hook a fish, whether it's with the tail rubber on or the tail rubber off, if that lead touches anything, it's off. There's no messing about, and especially in a venue like this, as I said earlier, with the big fish stock, you need to be putting every fish on the bank. You don't know when you hook the fish exactly what's on the end. It could be 20 pound, it could be 45 pound. So it's important that you bank every fish. So these leg clips are really designed for this. These leads can come off. I mean, one tip is, I wouldn't mess about with light leads. I use 3 3/4 up to 5 ounce leads for all of my fishing. This helps with setting the hook. It's a big hook. You want to, you know, drive it home. And with the decent sized lead, this happens every time. There's no messing about. And also it helps with the ejection. Again, a heavy lead, you've got the bolt effect and the lead's off. The lead's out of play and it's just you and the fish, no other obstacles. Obviously, just to offer a bit of protection for the fish and also just a bit line concealment if you're, you know, a fan of that. This is the dark camo leg core. You know, it's got very low visibility, and especially lakes like this, there's a lot of debris on the bottom. This is going to help, and also it's 45 pound as well, so it's a good breaking strain. It's going to be very abrasion resistant. If your fish is coming into contact with any snags in the lake, this is going to offer you the best possible chance of not being cut off at all, and it just aids with all of the whole rig situation really. So that's the rig that I started on anyway, and I managed to catch a couple on that before I switched over. And I switched over to a zig rig. I caught 2 fish, but I just felt like it wasn't right, and I decided to put one rod out on a zig rig. I just felt like the fish were cruising round, as often in the winter they do. They're just milling about, not really feeding. So I popped out a little zig rig, and well, it was a matter of minutes and I've had a take straight away. So it was clearly, you know, clearly a right move. And that's how I caught the last 8 fish. When I chucked my first rod out, I thought I'd just fish it in mid-water. So I started off on a yellow zigger liner. The reason for this is I like to fish a brighter zig hook bait lower down, just to like visibility. I think in the lower depths there's less visibility, so a brighter hook bait will stand out more to the fish. I later went on then to put 2 more rods out on the zigs, but they were on black zigger liners. They were higher up. The water's pretty clear here, so by fishing the black zigger liners higher up in the lake, they actually stand out more, believe it or not. And the yellow one I carried on fishing lower down. And I got a take straight away on this. After I chucked it out, it was on the rest for a matter of minutes and it was away. So that was clearly a good move. Again, I'm not messing about. I'm using a size 6 hook on my zigs. This is an SSBP again. A lot of people use 8s and 10s, and I personally think they're too weak. You know, you want to hook these fish and get them in. You don't want to lose them and come back with a hook looking like a pin. So size 6 hook on your zig. The hook link I'm using, this is 15-pound zig and floater line. You wouldn't really want to fish a heavier hook link than this on your zigs, and you always have to make sure it's monofilament as well. So 15-pound is pretty much a limit, but this stuff is strong, so that's not going to let you down. You know, you go using like 8s and 10-pound lines and you're asking for trouble really. So 15-pound line, make it nice and strong. Again, the slick leg clip, for obvious reasons, you want to get rid of the lead. These will come off on the take. With the zig rigs, the main problem is when you're playing the fish in, and due to the length of the hook length, especially if you're fishing deeper venues, the lead causes the problem. You can imagine that coming through the water, it's asking for trouble, bumping into like your other lines that are already still fishing. So the lead comes off, you're not going to catch your other lines, you're not going to have the lead swinging around when you're trying to land the fish. I've got a bite at the moment. And we're in. It's always the way. Well, before we were rudely interrupted by this carp that's taken my black and yellow zigger liner, we were just discussing about dumping the lead. The lead's come off on the take, and I was just moving on to the shock leader. The shock leader I use is a 30-pound Armadillo dark camo shock leader. There's a couple of reasons for this basically. Firstly, it enables your casting. You're never going to crack off of it. It's a strong old leader material, so it helps you if you're casting a long way. You know, you're not gonna break your main line and crack your rig off, leaving the rig in the lake on its own. But really the main advantage is its abrasive resistance to obstacles in the lake. I fished here a couple of weeks ago, and I actually got cut off by a snag under the water, and this was due to the fact that I didn't have one of these leaders on. And if I'd have had one of these leaders on, I would have landed every fish that I hooked. So I've come back this time and I'm geared up for it, and every fish is being put on the bank with no losses at all, which is what you want to be doing. And the leader itself, it can rub against things, and it's not gonna let you down. The version that I'm using at the moment is £30, and they actually do a £45 as well. And like the £45, I mean, that's for extreme snag fishing, and maybe fishing abroad as well on the continent in Europe. It's a nice fish. And yeah, where was I? That's a good fish. I just grab a net. So yeah, I can hear the shock leaders just come onto the rod, and you only need around 20 feet in length of shock leader. You don't need a lot of it. Once you've got a decent drop between your tip and where your lead would go, you'd only right, now he's in the net, we can talk. As I was saying, with your shock leader, you only need around 20 feet in length. You only want enough just to get a few turns on the reel, and then when you've got the rod behind you ready for casting, you've got a decent drop between your tip and your lead. And this will give you plenty of line. Then if the fish does take you into a snag, there's going to be more than enough leader there to protect your line from getting broken off. Now, let's have a look at this baby. Well, there it is. She's all been weighed up, 28 pound free. You saw there how quickly I got that fish in. There's no dramas at all. You get the bite, and it's a fish on the bank. The best way and the best advice I could give to you is fish strong, fish safe, bank every fish you work. Don't mess around. Lovely. Morning. Last night you saw us have that 28 pound mirror just before it got dark. Since then we've had no further action. Just after we caught the fish, the skies tended to clear up a little bit, and last night it went mega cold. I'm glad I was tucked up in my bed with my hot water bottle and I didn't have to get out for a bite, to be honest. Just want to show you how cold it was. That's solid. Yeah, so I was glad I was all tucked up nice and warm. But hopefully, with the way the weather is now, it's quite good for zigs really. Clear skies, nice little bit of sunshine breaking through this morning. So hopefully we'll have a couple more chances to slip a few fish on the map before we shoot off later. So we'll give it a go. Earlier on we talked about the shock leaders that I use and for what reasons I use them for. If you think that they're complicated to put on your rod and that, they're not. They're quite simple really. It's just a grinner knot one way and a grinner knot the other way. I'll show you exactly how I do mine and go through it with you. Just take your shock leader and obviously you've got your main line here. All you need to do is lie the two up against each other, one going one way, one going the other. Take your shock leader first, make a nice loop in the shock leader next to the main line, and then simply go through the loop and around the main line 4 times. Gently pull that tight. You don't need to pull it really tight at this present moment, just nick it together. Then take your main line, make another loop, the other side of the knot, and then repeat the process. 4 times through there. pull the knot nice and tight, and then you'll see the 2 knots together. Then all you need to do is pull them so they meet there, and then tighten them up with either end of each knot, just for a bit of added tension. And you can see that those knots aren't going to slip, and they only pull against each other and make it stronger anyway. Nick off your tag ends, and then just wind up through the rod, down to the reel, 3 or 4 turns on the reel, and then cut the leader off next to the spool when you've chosen how much drop you want from your tip to your lead, and that's it, done. Tie your rig on and fire it out in the pond and catch a big one. Fishing this particular way with single hook baits, whether it be like on the bottom or up in the water with zig rigs, you're not fishing over any bait. So by moving your rods around, you're not actually losing anything. And this tactic is actually specifically for just searching the fish out themselves. And I've sat there for a couple of hours since the last fish that you saw us catch, and no bites. So I've just started to recast my rods. I've done the left-hand rod, just moved that slightly more to the left. The middle rod, I just let a couple of more rod lengths of line off, clipped it up and chucked it a bit further, closer to the, I know there's a big weed bed just beyond where I'm fishing. And I put that rod on the rest, just started to wind my 3rd rod in to cast it out into a different spot, and the middle rod's ripped off straight away. So, so with this particular tactic, when you're not actually feeding any bait at all, it's well worth moving your rods around and actually using the rods to search the swim out rather than using your bait as a feature. And as we're not using any bait, it's done the damage and got us another bite just by changing a couple of rod lengths further, and we've got another carp on the end of here. My good old teammate's just turned up, Tom. So he's going to do the honours to me. Well done. Another stunner. Lovely fish. You've just seen me cast out there. Just one little tip for when you're fishing. You want to be accurate and know exactly where you're fishing all the time. And what I've done here is I've actually clipped my rods up to a certain distance, and I've put a marker on the line. So I know that I can get the rod, once I've caught a fish, right back on the same spot and try and catch another one. All you need to do is just, when you find your spot with your marker float or whatever you're doing, make sure you remember the tree or the telegraph pole or lamp post in the horizon for you to aim towards it. And then using 2 sticks 12 foot apart, you can wrap your lines around it and you count how many times it goes around the sticks. You can then clip that up on your spool. So when you cast that into the lake towards your marker, that's going to stop the line at exactly the right position. And once you've hooked a fish, obviously you're not going to know where that is. So using the marker elastic, which I tie on the line, I actually use 2 pieces just a short distance apart, and then that'll tell me if the elastic's ever slipped. So just to reassure me rather than me worrying and checking, and you know, it's just reassurance really. And this enables me to get the rod back out into the lake on the same spot every time with no dramas, and you're fishing instantly, not thinking, oh, where have I just put that rod, and worrying. And then you're on the money, ready for another one. just want to show you this quickly. Basically, this is what I store my zigs on. It's called a zig disc, and it's pretty self-explanatory really. In the past I've used other things and it was alright, but this has been specifically designed for zig fishing and storing your zigs. You tie your hook on and your zigger liner, hook your zigger liner into the end where it's supposed to go, in the recess there, and it makes it a lot easier for counting the depth of your zig out rather than sitting on top of a tackle box counting out a foot at a time or on your marker rod. You hook your hook on there, and one circumference of the disc is exactly 1 foot. So you just put your hook in, wind it round, however deep you want your zigs, and then basically cut it off, take a pin out of the end, tie a loop in the end of your zig, and pop the pin in the foam. You can store a number of zigs on here. There's 15 recesses, but they're big enough for a couple of zigs really. You can get plenty on there. You can tie these up at home, so when you get to your fishery where you want to fish and start your session, you're fishing straight away. There's no messing about tying up rigs. I've got a couple of these because obviously do a few competitions and stuff, and it just keeps me on the ball. I'm not messing about. I'm straight fishing again if I need a new zig. And this just goes in my little pouch. Stop it getting in any mess. Pop that in your bag. Job done. Well, I've finished as I've started. Still catching. This one, I hope you'll agree that it's probably the nicest one that I've showed you. It's an absolute stunner, £22. Well pleased with this. It's a beautiful fish and a real nice way to end the session. Lovely time on the bank.
Mark Bartlett making things look way too easy. And there's someone else here who's had a bit of a result. Scott, that is a cracking mirror. How big is it, mate?
Cheers, mate. 3110.
And what setup did you have that on?
I had it on a helicopter setup with the Illusion, fluorocarbon as a little leader, and the Comatech Soft.
Absolutely fantastic result, mate.
Minter.
And that brings us bang up to date. Over the last 6 months, over the most horrendous winter that I've ever endured, we've put a whole host of tackle through its paces at a variety of venues, and under the most challenging of conditions, it's always produced the goods. Producing products that we want to use in our fishing is a painstakingly slow process, a process that you've only seen a fraction of right here. By taking our time and ensuring everything is spot on, we can guarantee that the Edges range is going to put more carp on the bank for you. We can only hope you enjoyed this footage, and the edges you've gleaned along the way you can employ to good effect in your own carp fishing. So from everyone at Fox, take good care and tight lines.